Welcome back to Between Bells. Our next guest is a former defensive back for the San Diego Chargers and currently the lead pastor of the Rock Church. In a time our country is fighting for social equality, Miles McPherson is addressing racism and diversity in his book titled The Third Option: Hope for a Racially Divided Nation. Thrilled to say that Miles McPherson is taking the time to join us now. Miles, great to have you. Your book is incredibly relevant right now. It addresses an incredibly racially divided nation, us versus them, cops versus protesters, black citizens versus white citizens. How are you encouraging people not to pick one of two sides in a time that appears to be increasingly tribalized?
How you doing? Thanks for having me, JD. Nice to meet you. Our country is divided with us versus them, and I think it's very important for people to realize that that's what's going on. That once you pick one side against the other, you're automatically the enemy of the other. And if you decided to agree with anything on the other side, you become a sellout. The third option, which is what the book is about how do we honor and give value to what we have in common. We have more similarities than differences. All of us love our sleep, love our food, love our family, but we all want peace. We all want to get along. And if we can come to the table and talk about the things that we agree on, start with those things versus focusing on what the differences we have, we can make more headway. So the book is designed to give people tools, how to understand their blind spots, how to understand the power of labels and how we label people with dishonoring, dehumanizing labels that cause division, and how to have race consultations that I talk about versus race conversations. And all this is in the book, and so it's designed to give people tools on how to come together.
Pastor McPherson, a lot of people out there, especially during this time, perhaps their hearts are in the right place. They're trying to do the right thing, but there's a lot of hesitancy. They don't, they don't want to misspeak. They don't want to say the wrong thing. Give us a sense from your experience and what you write in the book here about ways to practice discussing race-related topics, especially in a bit of a divisive climate like we have right now.
And that's a great point, and it is a great question. I think the first thing is every time because we see color. All of us see color, and saying you don't see color is not only is it offensive to the person of color because you're telling them you don't see what they are, it's also not true because you only say it when you see color. And what you need to do is be not colorblind. I heard a guy say the other day, color brave, and acknowledge it and value it. Everybody has a color. White's color, black's a color, brown's a color. And basically they're all different shades of brown. When someone gets a tan, we celebrate that tan that you get in Hawaii, but we invalidate the tan in the womb. And so we first have to acknowledge that we see color. And if you have people in your life who are of different ethnicity than you, different culture, the best thing to do is to sit down and have a conversation and ask them if there are things about you that are offensive that you don't know about, blind spots. All of us have blind spots because as we grew up, we learned about our culture, we learned about other people, we learned about who was safe, who wasn't safe, who was smart, who wasn't smart according to our family. And so it put blinders on us. And so if you have people in your life who are of different ethnicity, different neighborhood, different culture, the best thing to do is sit down and have a friendly conversation and say, what don't I don't know? And have very humble conversations and give people opportunity to make mistakes. Understand that we're all on a journey. We're all learning. I'm 60 years old. When George Floyd was killed, I learned about the pain, aspect of the pain I've been carrying all my life. And so we're all learning and growing. And if we can give each other that grace, we can get further down the road.
You talk an awful lot about the need to try and better unify our local communities, unify our nation, and certainly for a lot of Americans, they continue to express their frustrations with our systemic law enforcement. If I'm not mistaken here, Pastor, both your father and your son are both in law enforcement. How do those relationships influence what you practice and ultimately what you preach and what you've written about?
Yeah, and my dad, who's passed away, he was a cop in New York City for 30 years. Started out as a patrolman, went to detective, and then he ended up being internal affairs, arresting cops. I think it's very important for us to not categorize a group of people as all bad or all good. Just like blacks don't want to be categorized, whites don't want to be categorized, cops, we shouldn't categorize. Are there bad cops? Obviously, they're human. They're good cops, bad cops. And so we need to acknowledge that and not look over that. And that's the problem, is that the ones that are bad often get a pass. And so we need to adjust the system so those cops are weeded out because they give a bad name to the good cops. And so I think that's probably the big pause we need to take is to realize that we don't want to not have cops, but we want to have good cops. When we call 911, we want someone that's going to come help us, and we want that system to change in that way and not categorize them all as bad.
Allow me to conclude with a little talk about the National Football League, and it does pertain to the broader Black Lives Matter movement here. Drew Brees authored the foreword of your book, and he's someone who has gotten himself into a little bit of hot water with regards to some controversial comments about the social advocacy component of players in the league. You yourself, of course, a former player there for the Chargers. Talk to me a bit about how you've seen the league react with regards to Black Lives Matter. Do you think that the league has done enough to listen to players and to try and enact social change both on and off the field?
Yeah, I think the league is going in the right direction. I think even when you talk about guys like Drew Brees, listen, I've known Drew Brees for 20 years. And when Drew left San Diego to play for the New Orleans Saints, I think he was at the 5 years with the Chargers. And I knew him when he was a rookie. So I had known him 5 years. Great guy, stand-up guy. And I said, why would you go to New Orleans? It was a year after Katrina. He said, I want to make a difference. And I will tell you that I don't know anybody, and guys in the league will tell you the same thing, that has done more for New Orleans than Drew Brees. He just donated another $5 million there. We have to look at the trajectory of people's lives and not one snapshot of what they said or how it was interpreted or whatever. Drew Brees, and I've talked to him since then, he's going to make things right beyond. The guy's got a great heart, and I think the NFL is going in the right direction. I think the cancel culture is a little extreme. When someone says something or we perceive someone to do something that isn't what we want, we all of a sudden, they're done. We have to realize that we're all on a journey. We are all learning. And when we make a mistake, we want another chance. And that's what we have to give. And I think if we can give each other grace, instead of saying, you didn't say this, or you didn't do this, or you're done, saying, let's keep talking, let's keep working. Some people are going to not want to change. Okay, great. But most people, once they realize they've said something wrong, they erred, they didn't understand, they want to make it right. And I think that's the spirit of what we have to portray, and that's the spirit of the book, The Third Option.
And as you do a great job here breaking down, Pastor McPherson, there is in fact a third option. That is the name of the book, The Third Option, Hope for a Racially Divided Nation. The book is available now. Pastor Miles McPherson, great to have you taking the time to join us here in Between Bells. Thanks a lot.